Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this special closed session of the Solvang City Council for Monday, March 28th, 2022. I call the meeting to order at 5:30. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Councilmember Clark.
I'm here.
Mayor Pro Tem Enfante.
Here.
Councilmember Aruna.
Here.
Councilmember Thomas.
Here.
Mayor Heurig.
Here. Councilmember Thomas, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
You with me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Madam Clerk, would you please read the item about public communication?
Public communications on closed session and non-agenda items. The council welcomes your input. At this time, you may address the council on items on closed session or on items not on the agenda. Time limit is 3 minutes. We will start with in-person public comments first.
I don't see any in person, and I haven't gone through the mail, so are any of these comments for, no, okay. So seeing no public in-house, take it out to Zoom, and I don't see anyone out there. Bring it back for final public comment, and we'll just take it to closed session right now at 5:32.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. City Council meeting closed session on two matters with legal counsel pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 subdivision D4 in one potential case. Another matter in 54956.9 subdivision D1 existing litigation, South Coast Property Company 13B LP versus City of Solvang.
Thank you. We'll go to closed session now at 5:32. All right, call the meeting back to order at 6:24.
Thank you, Mr.
Attorney.
Mayor. The city council met in closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 subdivisions D1 and D4 on one potential case of anticipated litigation and one existing case of litigation, South Coast Property Company 13B versus City of Solvang. There was no reportable action on either of the matters.
Right, now call the meeting adjourned at 6:25. Yes. Yeah. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Solvang City Council for Monday, March 28th, 2022. Call the meeting to order at 6:32. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Councilmember Clark,
I'm here.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante,
Here.
Councilmember Arona,
Here.
Councilmember Thomas,
Here.
Mayor Yurick.
Here. And Councilmember Clark, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please stand and place your right hand over your heart. Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. And moving on in the agenda, we have a couple of presentations. Madam Clerk, would you please read, or City Manager, I'm not sure who's doing the first presentation.
First presentation, we have a couple of presenters here with us. Bill and Megan are here to present for the broadband.
Members of the council, Bill Simmons, Broadband Consortium, Pacific Coast. November 8th was the last time I appeared before you, probably on that screen. Margie Kern was here from SBCAG and put forth a proposal to you about a regional strategy, and tonight we're going to be giving you a progress report on that strategy. Thank you for your support, and let me just say that a lot's changed since November 8th. I'm happy to be here in front of you and getting some sense of what the new normal is going to look like. Since we've talked last, we established our agreements with the team. We started working on the strategy itself, the effort. We've done planning. We've, in the last week or so, begun our engagement with the county communities overall at large, and you'll be getting some more details. And we're providing you our first update of progress in terms of what's going to take the majority of this year in terms of developing a strategy. But there's a lot of things we're working on, very interesting times, lots of opportunity for funding from the state. And it gives me a great deal of pleasure to introduce to you tonight our project coordinator. Maria Kelly has a heart and soul for this effort. She just, you'll recognize the passion, it's almost contagious. And it gives me a great deal of pleasure just to introduce her as the glue to this project. And the person behind the effort, she'll be giving the update tonight. Maria?
Man,
Try following that, right?
it's always such a high bar. Thank you for having us this evening. I'm not sure, can they see the PowerPoint? Great, thank you. Go ahead to next to the agenda. So this is a project to connect our communities, and what I'm going to be sharing with you this evening is some high-level points of why we're doing this project, what are the activities, the timeline, how fast we're going to do it and efficient and well, what the deliverables are, and then your role as a council and the policymakers for some thoughts for consideration as we move forward past planning and into implementation. There's some key things to be thinking about as you're making decisions over the next months, years, anyway. So great, next slide please. So why are we doing this? There's legislation that supports regional planning, meaning there's legislation that's supporting certain things that need to happen under Broadband for All and the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act for broadband specifically. And what I've done is just highlight some really key points. Under the California Broadband for All, which was signed in December of 2020 by Governor Newsom, in early 21 there was some additional legislation, a lot of legislation. But these four are really critical in because they all focus on creating the public partnership. These monies that are coming down are for the public sector to participate with the private sector to execute. SB 156 is an ongoing funding. It's not just a one-time funding. That's going to be something that will be funded year over year. Internet for All, digital equity. Why are we doing these projects? It's to get everybody connected. Why are we talking about infrastructure? Because at the end of the day, we need everybody connected to the internet. So that's the long run. So the Internet for All Act is a big piece of that, especially for rural communities or farther reach. Anyway, so just high level, under and out of the Infrastructure Jobs Act, I pulled a teeny tiny section. That's a huge document, but wanted to show some of the alignment in broadband, some of the grant funding, data mapping, deployment location mapping, figuring out where this infrastructure is going to be deployed, and then again, that digital equity piece. Digital equity is going to be heard throughout, whether it's California or the feds. Telecommunications and workforce is another area of funding and focus. Next slide, please. Project plan and activities, just so you know what we're doing. This is, again, these are the fun parts. What we did last week was push out the survey and the speed testing. This data collection is really important. It's not to highlight any poor performance by the telecom, but rather to show where the needs are within our communities. So we have a needs assessment survey that's on SBCAG's website, and we have a speed testing survey. These got pushed out, they were soft run a couple weeks ago. We pushed them out on Wednesday. As of this afternoon, prior to coming to meet with you, we had, I wrote it down, 579 needs assessment surveys completed. Our target was 600. We thought that would be great. We've got 2 more months of collection, so I'm looking at 1,000 or more. For speed testing, we were hoping the same. For the speed tests already, we're at 1,386 as of about 4 o'clock this afternoon. We're getting some incredible data. When we miss out, if we see any gaps, we'll go back and do a second round of outreach. So that's a big part of what we're talking about. The other part is digital inclusion conversations. We're going to be coming and doing outreach directly in your communities, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute or two. So the surveys will help us identify the priority areas by community and by county. So you'll be getting some real solving. We'll get some real feedback directly on what some priorities we might see around your community. Validate and prioritize the findings. We're developing an open access GIS mapping system that we were in discussions again today. Some of those layers, disadvantaged communities, other asset information, information from the foundation of the foundation, community foundation, Senator Community Foundation, and universities, trying to find and really validate what's where and how we can use it to justify funding requests. And then coming back again to policy recommendations, we'll complete a sort of a regional roadmap by community, but also by the region. Again, this is collectively done best, and that's why SBCAG has been such an critical role to this. At the end of the day, and I'll show you in another slide, that middle mile strategy, we'll find out what we have and where, and do we have enough, and how are we going to access it. And then the last mile, final mile, which is really what we're talking about within our cities, correct? Making sure that our residents, businesses, our schools are able to connect for all the reasons we discussed: workforce, education, telehealth, all those things. And then identifying our digital inclusion partners for that long-term goal. Next slide, please. This is the timeline. It's a little bit hard to read. Where we are is we were right on track, a little ahead of track in that February, March, starting the convening and then putting out those surveys. Under the February, March, you'll see Isp Outreach. Again, this is a really critical piece. The ISPs, the telecom, are our partners, and we need to make sure that they're aware of what this project is doing and how we see them as a partner moving forward. So we're working with them as closely as we can. Seen some great updates from some of them already in regards to increase in speeds. We'll develop your priorities and approaches, and then in May and June, once we find out where those data gaps are, we'll go back and do that second round of outreach and hopefully be back in front of you in September with a draft of the strategy, so you'll be able to get a big picture. Next slide, please. The outcomes. What is the strategy going to include? It's going to be a complete document with a comprehensive list of gaps and needs assessments, and those we're doing in a number of ways. We've met with your city manager, and we'll be meeting with all the city managers. We have 3 left to go. Meeting with all the city managers, finding out what sort of assets you have, what are your planning priorities, and again, I'll touch on that in the next slide. Again, this open access GIS mapping tool is really important. We're finding a lot of our different cities don't necessarily have access to mapping. We want to make something that's super comprehensive and usable by all the cities, but again, housed within SBCAG, accessible by all public sector partners. And then the planning results. With this document, with this tool, we'll be able to identify the middle mile needs, where's the redundancy and resiliency within the networks. Maybe it's already there, maybe it's not. What do we need to build? There is funding, middle mile funding that's been identified by CPUC. We're not sure where that's going to go yet, so we're going to help with that. Community maps for the final mile. What are some recommended projects and funding proposals that you might be able to consider to help close those gaps? And then finally, again, at the end of the day, looking at that digital equity and inclusion for that long run. That's really why we're doing all this work, is to make sure everybody can connect to the internet. And again, handing over the coordination of all the stakeholders and for all the ongoing work effort, because this is just the beginning. We've got years and years of great work to do, and this planning tool will be your baseline. It'll be good for years to come. Next slide, please. For your consideration, and we've already touched on this with Solving's city manager, is who the main point of contact is going to be with the project team. We'll be working with them on looking at technical assistance grants that are coming up. We're going to need to put in some grant funding requests, and how are we going to work with you as a part of the team as we move forward. Participating in gap analysis, finding out what planning documents do you have. Is it in your general plan? Is broadband a conversation that you have? Is it a priority within your scope of work? It's going to be important that it is. At some point, it's going to need to be a part of all of that. GIS mapping partnership, who are we going to be able to work with to get the information that we need to load it up so that everybody's looking at the same thing. And then sharing and distributing the data collection, which we've already discussed, and all the chambers are actively participating in that. So we've got great partnerships already here in Solving. We'll be back for a panel discussion here on May 28th, 5:30 to 7 p.m. I'd like to thank the mayor and Zenia and Tracy from the chamber for organizing that. It'll be a panel conversation discussing digital equity and inclusion. We'll be promoting the speed test and the data collection. Again, thank you so much to the team for allowing us and helping make sure that we get back for the public. And then just again, participate in discussions and all the coordinating work efforts and making sure that you have the information that you need to make decisions, but we'll also be making sure that you're aware of all the things that we're doing so you can help promote the conversations. And the final slide is our information. Please feel free to reach out to any of us at any time, and the SBCAG project team. I didn't put it up here, but there is a special page on the SBCAG website for broadband planning, and it has all the links for the speed testing. It's in English and Spanish. You can see the results map. It's all the needs assessment survey is also all in English and Spanish, and all the links can be found there. And that is my fast presentation, fast talking. Do you have any questions?
Are there any questions from council? Where is the location going to be? I just want to make sure everyone kind of gets that. It'll be right here for May 28th in Solving. It'll be right here at City Hall.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, you.
All right.
If I may.
Yeah.
You may.
Thank you. You were talking about mapping.
Yes.
Is this going to map the Wi-Fi areas that you can connect to, or is it going to map the cable in the ground? What's it going to map?
Ideally, we want to see where we can put fiber in the ground. When we're really talking about this, we're talking about fiber. We're talking about fiber in the ground. Wi-Fi may be a way that some people connect, and we can see that on the speed testing data, but we're really looking at hardwire infrastructure and where are the gaps, what do we have, where is it, and where do we want more?
Thank you.
And just to remind everybody, because I was going to have that in my council comments, was you can go to sbcag.org and they have all of the links that you need to be able to do the speed tests and the surveys and the broadband needs assessments. So please, everyone, if you're out there listening, everyone in Solving, we'd appreciate getting a great response from Solving.
Thank you.
Next up, we have one more presentation. Thank you for the presentation, by the way.
Next up, we have a presentation on the legislative update. We have invited our Call Cities representative, Dave Molnars, who is joining us by Zoom today to just give you an update and answer any questions. Go ahead, Dave.
All right, everybody hear me?
Yes.
We can.
All right. Well, I thought I'd just come by and let everybody know, give an idea of what's going on up there in Sacramento. Give you a little bit of flavor of the good, bad, and the ugly, and what's happening in the Capitol right now as well. Right now we have an unprecedented, historic record budget surplus somewhere between $20 and $50 billion, depending on if you're listening to the LAO or the governor. And they've already started budget subcommittees. We have some ask out for local governments too. And those budget subcommittees on how to slice and dice that budget will be going on for the next several months. I will be updating you as they proceed. The legislative session is underway as well. There's about 1,500 bills. We had a webinar, the League of Cities had a webinar last week. I sent a link to the video of that webinar and the slide deck if you want to check it out again. And that should have gone out to everybody's email. If you are not receiving my legislative emails, please let me know and I'll include you on the listserv. But there's about 1,500 bills that have been introduced. The priorities are really in housing and homeless mostly, some infrastructure stuff, and as your previous speaker just pointed out, a lot of broadband as well. Some of the interesting dynamics that's going on right now, there are literally 29 to date right now assembly members that are stepping down. Not that they are turned out, but they said because of redistricting and that they just don't want to do it anymore. And there's the latest one was 29 that he dropped out at the deadline date. And so which also presents unique opportunities to make sure that the people coming in to the legislature, 29 assembly members, that they're hearing the local government, local community story, challenges, and what we need and how we can help them as well as they start their careers off up there in Sacramento. Some of the other bills that I know that we've been interested in was the Prop 47, which was the proposition that $1,000 if you were got caught stealing $1,000 or less, you got a ticket, you didn't go to jail, you didn't get anything, no real consequence. There were 3 main bills to try to reform that. 2 Democrat bills that kind of went at the edges, and 1 Republican bill that tried to dump Prop 47. They all flopped. They didn't get out of policy committee. These days, because the legislature has over 2/3 Democrat in both the Senate and the Assembly, any Republican bills of a consequence really have no chance of moving forward. But there's going to be another stab at that Prop 47 reform, and again, I will keep all of you informed of that as well. Some of the main categories, again, homeless. There's going to be a lot of money. The legislature is trying to figure out, did the money that they handed out last year on some of these homeless programs, did they work? They want to hear from the local governments on ideas on how to improve that. Was the money enough? Do we need more money? What type of programs are successful and what are not? And we're going to need to make sure that we communicate clearly to our legislators on that. Housing, once again, is going to be a big issue this year. There's at least a couple hundred housing bills, at least 30 ADU bills, like they just keep packing them on more and more. And some of the bills that you find, you're gonna probably be alarmed by, one of the bills actually would allow 2-story ADUs in the state. We'll be fighting that bill, I'm sure, when it comes up. So again, as these bills become more clarified and we've got our priorities set, in the next week or 2, you'll be getting more definitive information and action alerts, and when we have letters to send and phone calls to make, I will be alerting all of you for that. Right now, the Capitol is still dealing with the COVID. Some offices are opening. The policy committee, the committee rooms are more or less open. Lobbies are allowed in the Capitol right now for the first time in 2 years. The offices for individual legislators, some are allowing meetings in their offices, some are not. The speaker has a different set of criteria than the president pro tem of the Senate. So it's kind of a mess up there. Sometimes we can our lobbyists can get to them, sometimes we can't. We will still be lobbying quite a bit through Zoom as well for the next foreseeable future, at least for the next month or so. And then we anticipate that they'll be opened up here sometime in late May or June. One of the other things we're going to be faced with this year too is initiatives, state initiatives. There are 3 qualified, 8 are on the street right now. Some of the big ones are the sports gaming issues, trying to gather signatures. You need 1 million valid signatures to qualify for the ballot in November. To get 1 million, you need to raise about 1.3 or 1.4 million. And right now, believe it or not, on the street, they're paying between $7 and $9 a signature to qualify it. The measure that's really going to impact us, if it qualifies, is the California Business Roundtable initiatives that would change how local governments can put forth voting measures on your ballot, tax measures on your ballot. It will change how you can increase your fees, and it will even change how you can assess penalties on bad actors in communities around the state as well. So this is an initiative that we are really following closely. It just crossed the threshold of 250,000 they needed to have turned in by 2 weeks ago. They need to have that 1.3 million by the end of April. April 29th is the deadline date. They have about $8 million in the bank. We estimate they need really 12 million. If they do not make the April 29th deadline, they can go until August 2nd to be on the 2024 ballot. I will come around to all of you to give you a much more in-depth presentation on this, because it's probably the biggest impact on local governments in a decade or two, if it qualifies. So we're tracking every day on any money being moved into the committee, and again, we'll have our eye on that April 29th deadline, and you'll be hearing a lot about that initiative as we're moving forward. And finally, we're going to be the board, our Channel County's board, we're setting up a schedule to come back to do some of our division meetings. We'll start with a couple of virtual meetings, and we will hope to be by late spring or early June back to having our in-person meetings at cities around the Tri-County area. And I look forward to meeting all of you in person. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Don't ever hesitate to text, email, or call me if you have any questions on what's going on there in Sacramento, or specific bills that you're interested in, or conferences that are coming up that you might be interested in. And please don't hesitate to contact me at any time.
All right, thank you, Dave, appreciate that. Can you just say one more time what that Cal Business?
Sure, it's called the California Business Roundtable, is the organization that is that's raising the money and put forth, along with the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer organization. And I will, it's called the California Taxpayer Protection Committee. And what it is it's really 3 or 4 large developers down in the LA area, LA and Orange County, that are funding this. They've all put in, out of the $7.5 million, it's been 3 or 4 developers that have put in like 90% of the money. And it's really about them trying to get excluded from taxes and other things, and make it harder for cities and local communities to raise taxes and fees in order to meet the needs and challenges of their community. And again, we're tracking it very closely, and I will give you much more information. And feel free to give me a call or email me if you want some more information right now.
All right, thank you. Is there any questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, one quick question. I'm curious, considering the extent of the drought and the state water, the reduction in state water supplies to all of us, is there anybody trying to say, look, if we don't have the water, maybe we shouldn't have the RENA numbers that we have?
That's a great question, by the way, and the RENA numbers are always a big thorn in the local government side, quite frankly. And most of the legislation, the rules that have come out of the governor's office, HCD, Housing Community Economic Development Department. Most of the bills that are coming out that are dealing with the RENA numbers and the housing numbers, because as everyone knows, most of the RENA numbers are sometimes 2 and 3 times higher than the normal allocation. They don't really take into consideration those, reality, like infrastructure, water, whether jobs are being created nearby. And this is a constant battle that we'll be fighting for the next several years.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, Thank you, Dave, appreciate the presentation.
Hey, thank you very much. Great to see all of you and look forward to meeting you all soon.
Yes. Likewise, in person.
Absolutely.
All right, now moving on to public communications. Please read that. Madam Clerk.
Public communications, non-agenda and consent items. The council welcomes your input. This time you may address the council on items not on the agenda and consent agenda. Time limit is 3 minutes. We will start with in-person public comments first.
And Mayor, if I may remind, we have a time certain at 7 o'clock, so there's enough comment for one
Maybe
person.
one
And
person.
then we would need to pass.
I do have one. So in speaker slip for Michael Baker. Come on up, Mike.
That worked out well.
It did.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Michael Baker. I'm CEO for United Boys and Girls Club of Santa Barbara County. I want to thank you for hosting in-person meetings, which is great to see again. I wanted to give you an update that we are conducting our program at Solvang Elementary School. It's been going very well. I want to thank you again for helping to secure space for us during the COVID time at the Veterans Hall. That was a huge, huge help for our organization. And I want to give special thanks to the Mayor for making that happen. That was a huge, and city administrator as well. So thank you very much for making that happen. We're averaging about 30 children a day at the location. We have room, that's about all we can handle right now because we have one classroom that we're dealing with. So we're looking to hopefully get more space at some point, get back to two classrooms at the Solvang Elementary School, but we're still operating semi-COVID standards a little bit, we have to do as well, and that's been going very well. I will tell you that our overall goal for all Boys and Girls Clubs is the magic number is 105. You're going to hear me report that out to you on a regular basis, but if we know that if we can get a child to attend a Boys and Girls Club 105 days in the same calendar year, they're twice as likely to graduate high school in time and twice as likely to lead a healthy lifestyle. So we've embraced that program, and what I have here, and I'll share with you real quickly, is when a child joins the Boys and Girls Club, they receive their membership card. And this year's membership card, that's not going to tip, that'll work out well. It is a burgundy membership card, and that entitles them to go to any one of our clubs. When they achieve the halfway mark of 105 days, which I know is not actually 52 days, I know it's 52.5. I did pretty well in math. They receive their silver card, and then entitles them to special privileges at the Boys and Girls Club as well. It's all about attendance. And then when they achieve the 105 magic day, that's when they get their gold card. And the reason I'm bringing this up with you today is what we've been able to do at every one of the city councils that we've had worked with in the cities, Buellton, Carpinteria, Goleta, Lompoc, Santa Barbara. We have been able to work with the city councils to present the children with their gold cards at city council meetings, recognizing them for attending the Boys and Girls Club. So we'd love to do that here as well in Solvang. And then finally, after 200 days, they get their blue card, and that entitles them to special privileges at the Boys and Girls Club as well. So I wanted to share that with you, and hopefully we can see you at one of our clubs, give you a tour. You're more than welcome to come in person. Love to do that with you.
I thought it was going to be a platinum card.
Platinum card, yeah, well, that's, no platinum cards. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. And we're right at 7.
It's perfect timing.
Thank you for that, keeping us right on track.
If we could move item number 5 to the 7 o'clock as being time certain.
Needed a motion to move item number 5. Sure.
Yes.
So moved.
Seconded? I'll second. Call for roll.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante,
Yes?
Councilmember Urbana,
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas,
Yes.
Mayor Yurick.
Yes.
Okay, item number 5 is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Solvang, California, adding a new chapter 1.12 to the Solvang Municipal Code to change the system of elections for members of the City Council from at-large system to by-district system, and adopting a map describing the boundaries and identifying election sequencing for each electoral district. This is the first reading of the ordinance, and the focus today is on selection of the map As you would recall, staff and consultant were presented to you with 3 maps on March 7th, which were green, orange, and yellow plans. The City Council gave us some feedback. There was support for making some modifications to the orange map, and our consultant has worked on creating those modifications. The clockwise and counterclockwise revisions to the orange map were posted on the dedicated website, which is districtsolon.org. And today we have Daniel Phillips with NDC, if you would please come up, here to present the modified maps and receive your final direction on the selection of a map. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. So I have another PowerPoint presentation to share with you. So as soon as that's on the screen, I'll continue. Okay, great. So we are toward the close of a long process that began last summer, where we had 3 pre-draft hearings to discuss what the maps might look like. We had to do this by law before any draft maps were posted. So we had those. Then this past February, the plans were released on the website. And then we had the first of the post-draft hearings on March 7th, which leads us to tonight, the 28th, to have the second of those post-draft hearings. And so the idea is to arrive at one map to adopt, and the first reading will be held tonight, and then there will be a second reading of the ordinance on April 11th, and that will be the final public hearing, the adoption hearing, to formally adopt the map. So next slide, please. So the criteria for drawing these districts, in case anyone might be hearing this for the first time, I know all of you have heard this several times, but they come from federal and state law as well as traditional principles. So under federal law, the districts had to be equal in population. They don't have to be exactly equal. There is some wiggle room, but not too much. We want to also be mindful of the Federal Voting Rights Act by not diluting the voting strength of a racial or ethnic minority group. But on the flip side, not make race or ethnicity the only or main consideration, which would be considered racial gerrymandering. Under state law, we have the requirements that the districts be contiguous, just one piece each, that they avoid dividing neighborhoods and communities of interest, which are socioeconomic and geographic areas that should be kept together. Number 3 is to follow easily identifiable boundaries that people are familiar with. 4 is to have districts that are compact in that they do not bypass one group of people to get to a more distant group of people. So these are arranged in a rank order. So the criteria that are higher up on the list are more important to follow if it's not possible to adhere to all of them. And we have other traditional principles such as respecting voters' choices, i.e. continuity in office, and accounting for future population growth. Next slide, please. So last meeting I came to you with the 3 draft plans. I'm calling these the original draft plans. And one of these was the yellow plan. And this has a total population deviation just over 6%. A reminder, anything less than 10% is considered equal population. So it fits that requirement. There is a concentration of the Latino community in District 3. In fact, that is the case under all the plans before you. And so we make sure that we're in adherence to the Federal Voting Rights Act by not diluting their voting strength, keeping them in one district in the center of the city. The issue with this plan is that District 4 is not contiguous as it currently is. It has to be connected via a park, which is possible, but there's other issues like District 4 may not be considered very compact, and District 2 is not, there's no road connection between one part and the other, and One of the advantages, however, of this plan is that the tourist-related commercial area is kept together in District 3. And so the question is, would it be better represented in a single district or multiple districts? And it seems last time that the council seemed to agree that it would be better represented in one district, but so that would be an advantage of the yellow plan. And so that is the yellow plan. Next slide, please. Then we have the green plan, which has a higher deviation of 8.5%, but it's still under the 10% threshold. And so under this plan, all 4 districts are contiguous. You have that Latino concentration in District 3. It does not appear to unnecessarily split any neighborhoods or communities of interest, such as multifamily housing, senior living facilities, and mobile home parks. And the TRC, our tourist-related commercial area, is kept together in District 3. And with this plan, we may have issues of compactness, especially with District 1, which skirts around the eastern edge of the city. The next slide, please. That leads us to the orange plan, which has a deviation of 8.3%. 56% of the citizen voting age population in District 3 is Latino, so we're good on that metric. All 4 districts are contiguous. It does not appear to unnecessarily split any communities of interest, but it does split the Sunrise Village neighborhood along the elementary school district boundary. So in District 1 would be in the Ballard School District, and District 2 would be in the Solvang School District. So that neighborhood is cut, but district boundaries follow major streets wherever possible, and all districts are reasonably compact. So given that we had that neighborhood split, the council gave us direction on coming up with some revisions that might allow for that Sunrise Village neighborhood to be kept intact. So that's what the next slide will show you. The first of those revisions, which I am calling the clockwise revision, because what we're doing is basically doing a clockwise rotation around the city to shift population between districts. So we're uniting Sunrise Village by extending District 1 to Alamo Pintado Road. And so in order to do this, we have to shift other districts to make sure everything's population balanced. So they're shifted clockwise along the red arrows that you see on the map there. So the result of this is that we have a plan with a deviation under 7%. District 3 is still good with its Latino CVAP. All 4 districts are contiguous. It does not appear to unnecessarily split any neighborhoods or communities of interest. The tourist-related commercial areas kept together in District 3. District boundaries follow major streets wherever possible. District 2 is somewhat less compact than what we had on the original orange plan, but if you recall, that's the very last priority of the state criteria. And so the last plan that you have to consider is the counterclockwise revision. So in this case, we're uniting Sunrise Village by extending District 2 to the northern city limits. And so to make sure everything's population balanced, other districts shift counterclockwise to ensure that, and you'll see everything kind of cycles around the District 3. So with this plan, we have District 3 remaining the Latino majority seat. It's a deviation of about 7.5%. No issues of contiguity or neighborhood or community of interest splits. That TRC is kept together in District 3. The boundaries follow major streets wherever possible. And District 4 is somewhat less compact, but not too bad. To do this plan, we actually had to split a couple census blocks. And so we are kind of estimating how many people live in one part of the census block versus the other, but we feel it's a reasonable thing to do in order to keep neighborhoods together. So next slide, please. So this slide gives you a table which kind of compares all the plans on these different metrics. And you can see that when it comes to population deviation, yellow's the best, but again, they're all under 10%, which is that threshold we want to be under. With District 3's Latino CVAP, we have no issues there. They're all basically the same. With the TRC, the one outlier is the orange plan, the original orange plan, where it's split in two, but it's kept together under the other plans. And same with Sunrise Village, it's split under the orange plan, but kept together under every other plan. The compactness minimum score is just showing which district is least compact under a particular mathematical measurement of compactness, with 0 being not compact at all, and 1 being maximally compact. And so the least compact would be the District 4 you have under the yellow plan. And green plan is also pretty poor, but with the orange and its revisions, it's more compact. You have the worst district is just around 0.4. And the last column you'll see is the vacant districts. And so we are, given what we know about where the incumbents live and which incumbents are choosing to run for re-election, you can see here how many vacant districts there would be under each of the proposals. So under the yellow plan, there would be 1, and the clockwise revision also 1, but there would be 2 with the others. Next slide, please. So that leads me to the election sequence options. So with the yellow and orange clockwise, it's a very simple configuration where we, based on, again, where the incumbents live and who's planning on running for re-election, it works out where it's going to be a pretty simple decision as far as which districts are up in which years. With the other plans, such as the green, the orange, you have 2 vacant districts, so it's just a matter of determining which vacant district is up in 22 and which is up in 24. With the orange counterclockwise revision, it's the most complicated, because in one district under that plan, we would have 2 incumbents who, as far as we know, are planning on running for re-election, whose terms expire in different years. So that would raise complications as far as which one would be better to have it earlier or have it later, and which council member to cater to. And so that would be the major drawback of that revision. So that leads me to my last slide, I believe. So just here to take your questions and hear which plan you might prefer. And we also have the interactive review map if you want to look into that.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead with questions.
I brought up last time, I was pretty adamant about the Great Explorer Canyon cut, and going straight up and being the division, and you did that. And I just wanted to say I appreciate you looking at that and coming up with that. I like the orange plan, obviously. I'm kind of staying out of the election stuff because I'm not a participant in that, but I just wanted to say thanks.
Are there any questions of the staff?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
On your last slide, you have, not that it concerns me, on the last slide you have say for example, I live in District 4, and you go with the yellow plan, that would be a 6-year term.
So you're talking about the orange?
Yellow plan, District 4.
Yellow plan, District 4. When does your term expire, sir?
2022.
Okay.
Aren't you in District 2 there, in the yellow plan?
Oh, you know what, I apologize. Every other district I'm in 4, it's your
in 2.
yellow. No, yellow is 4. Yeah.
I think he's more in all of them.
I'm 4 in all of them.
On Fjord, the south side is 4.
Oh, you know what? You're right, because it's basically
The green belt.
on that, yeah, it's a green belt. There's no houses on that side, that's very funny. Okay.
You could put a
Never
trailer up
mind.
though. You could put a trailer up though.
True. You're right, I thought they were all the District 4s, you're right.
It appears to me, in my opinion alone, that the orange plan clockwise revision has one of the smallest amounts of deviation, covers the CBAP just fine, keeps everything pretty much together in areas around the town that seem to make sense to me. So, and all of the election sequences seem pretty obvious. So if you're looking for preferences, I would say the orange plan clockwise.
I like that too.
There's three of us, oh, you just vote, let's vote.
Let's take a comment first.
Any other comments?
Do we need to make other comments about this document? Because, or can we, should I say? I mean, rather than just the maps?
Are you talking about the ordinance itself?
Yeah, so, for instance, let me get down here, on page 121, 1.12.030 city council districts established. Okay, in the 20, the by-district elections for city council. The last statement in A says, each member of the city council shall serve a 4-year term until his or her successor is qualified. So if we don't have a qualified successor, does that extend our term?
So it gets a little bit complicated as to how you provide for the continuity of government in that situation. And your successor can be qualified in a number of different ways, one of which is by the acceptance of the canvass of voters at the subsequent election. If there is no one that runs in that situation, then you need to still have that continuity of government. In other words, you don't want to have a vacancy until you can provide for that. So that's why that language is in there.
But then shouldn't it make the statement that says, if no one runs in a district, what do we do? Or how do we handle it? Is it and if I understand correctly, it's an appointment at that point, is that
Yeah, it
correct?
would be if nobody runs.
Okay, so how do we determine who to appoint? Is it just our personal preferences?
No, there are provisions.
We've been down this road.
Yeah, there are provisions under the code on how that is supposed to be done, whether it's an appointment or a
But it's
a
not in
special
this
election.
document.
And this is establishing the by-district elections. The term is going to be set at 4 years. That's not going to change as a result of this ordinance. But I see the concern that you have, that if no one serves and no one runs for that position, then what do you have in that situation? And I would have to take a look at a way to modify the language. That I can certainly do that on a first reading, but I would not have a fully formed answer for you doing it during the council meeting, trying to figure that out.
Fair enough, as long as we understand that that's something we need to address somehow, I think.
Yeah, and this is the kind of thing that once you adopt a map, we can come back and revise that ordinance at a later time. We're under kind of a timeline to get these maps adopted in time for the election to take place by districts in November. To tinker with that little language, we're not under that timeline. We could change that later on, but that's something that we can certainly get back to you. And if we think that there is a need to change that, we can certainly make that change later on. It doesn't affect the districting elections, though.
Is there anything that requires a minimum number of votes for somebody to be voted in? So one vote, if nobody else is against that individual, will elect that person to the city council.
If that's a majority of the electors voting at the election, if you only had one person show up to the polls and they voted for that one person, you have 100%.
What if 100 people show up, but only one of them votes for that person, everybody else voting for something else? Well, you got yeah, there's different elements on each thing that you vote for. We're gonna be voting on the city tax presumably, we're gonna be, so these are all parts of what's gonna happen in the election. So if somebody in whatever district's up next says, yeah, I'm gonna register and I'm gonna vote for, whether we do the city taxes, whether we do this, whether we do that, but when it comes to voting for the individual, I don't want him or her, and there's no opposite, so I'm just not gonna vote. So if only one person votes for them, out of the, we're gonna have 200 registered voters per district, basically, is that right? 500.
No, Well, population 1,500, what's the percentage of the population
We get
registered voters?
2,000 registered voters, don't we?
Is it?
No,
it's
more like
about
30,000.
30,000?
36,000.
So
Okay,
in that situation,
63,600.
if there's only one vote for one candidate, that's 100% of the votes
It's 100% vote for the candidates.
for the candidate.
That's legit. That's what I wanted to know. I don't like it, but.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that was identified very early on about the difficulty of doing district elections in Solvang. You have sliced the pie into such a small slice that a swing is, 5 or 6 votes, really. It could be. You could have that situation between 2 candidates in that district where 5 or 6 votes will make a difference. That's really no different in kind from much larger organizations, though. In at-large elections, I've seen elections come down to 1 or 2 votes, and in sometimes a tie where they have, there's historical precedent for them either having a poker game or a high card draw to determine who is actually elected in that situation. But with the smaller the piece of pie that you have for the electorate, the more likely it is that you're going to have those kind of close contests.
Okay, I'll give one last silly comment. If you look at, where is it? It's not that it's raining. On the agenda, item number 5, under subject, electoral was misspelled.
That's all you got.
Right in the heading, the very last line says electoral.
All right.
Councilmember Infante, you think there would be districts with nobody running for office?
Yes.
Really? And what is your thinking on that? How did you come to that? I would assume if the day before filing, if nobody else is filing, somebody's like, oh, nobody's filed, well, I'll do it.
Most say no, they can.
That's a possibility. That's actually a possibility. And because we haven't been in that environment before, I don't know that that's gonna happen. But if you look at who's run in the prior elections, none of them have come from District 3.
Well, now they will.
Maybe they will run
So you're
once
gonna-
that they have to convince those people.
Right.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
Oh, yeah,
a lot
did you get
cheaper
15
running the
signatures?
election.
Is it 15 signatures?
Okay,
Okay, I see what you're saying now, thank you.
that was only my concern.
All right, moving on. Any final questions? We'll take it out to public comment right now. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak? I do not have any speaker slips. Seeing none, I'll bring it back. Anybody in Zoom? No one in Zoom, we'll bring it back for final reading. Or make a motion for, do we need a motion for this? Make sure, final comments, otherwise I'm gonna close the public portion of the hearing. I'll close the public portion of the hearing and bring it back to council for final discussion. Last comments. And motion to select a selected map, or to adopt a selected map.
Are we adopting tonight?
Yes.
Yes.
You're selecting the map, but you're introducing the ordinance, so the map will be
Thank you.
finally selected at the second reading of
Oh,
the
so
ordinance.
somebody can come and discuss it in the next, okay, got it.
Correct.
Okay.
That's why we're on the time. Yeah.
In that case, I'll move that we select the orange plan with the clockwise revision.
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante,
Yes.
Councilmember Arona,
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas,
Yes.
Mayor Yurick.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Mr. Mayor, that was the selection of the map. I just wanted to make it clear that that was also the first reading of the ordinance, unless Councilmember Infante wanted to exclude that and address that separately.
I think that's what the motion was
Okay,
for,
just-
to introduce for first reading as well.
Okay, just to be clear, thank you.
All right. So do we want to go back, are we ready to go back to finish off the public comments?
Yeah.
At this time? I have the one speaker slip, and is there anyone wishing to speak in-house on any items that are on the consent agenda or items that are not on our regular calendar? Seeing none? Empty house there. Seeing none, we'll bring it back to Zoom. Anyone in Zoom? Seeing none, we'll bring it back. And now we'll just move on to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I would just like to start by reminding everybody where we are on the general plan update. If we could have my slides pulled up. So the last action item that we have had on the general plan update was the fact that we held a housing element workshop number 1, which occurred on March 24th. It was a Zoom-only meeting. There weren't a lot of attendees. We had we received a few public comments, but we'll continue to hold public workshops specifically for the housing element. So we are proposing holding another workshop for the housing element within the next couple of months. That particular workshop will focus more on discussions surrounding potential rezoning of the vacant lands in different sites. So that will be the focus. We also received some public comment during that presentation at the first workshop on the housing element itself, asking or questioning why there isn't more outreach into the Spanish-speaking community. We had modified the scope of the general plan update at the beginning of the process to include translation into Spanish on our city website, and also have the newsletters be available in Spanish version. So we have some capacity to do some additional outreach to the Spanish-speaking population as part of this housing element update. So the plan right now is to, as we create the outreach and publish publications for the next public workshop, to have those available in Spanish, and also reach out to some of the community organizations that may have closer connection with Spanish speakers within the city of Solvang. Of course, the next steps for the general plan update, this is just the timeline of where we've been and where we going. The next steps will be that between now and the summertime, we'll be engaging in actual work product of preparing the general plan. So that will be the actual hands-on preparation of each and every general plan element. We have the consultants and all of their team and their sub-consultants working on the technical analysis at the same time as we'll be holding multiple meetings with the GPAC that's been assisting the 15 volunteers representing the community in review of those elements. The design review committee will also be closely involved in the community design element update, and all of that information will be coming back for final review by the Planning Commission and the City Council for your adoption. Following that process, we'll be moving into the environmental review, where all the environmental impacts will be analyzed before the general plan is actually presented for adoption, once again through the Planning Commission and the City Council in public meetings in spring of 2023. Now, I've inserted there this yellow box in the middle based on your latest direction to continue the conversation regarding either closure of Copenhagen Drive or finding an alternative location for development of a European style type of plaza. So that process realistically would be occurring somewhere between the phase 4 and the phase 5. You'll need to make some significant progress discussing the locations with the community, looking at the traffic impacts, communicating all of that, and coming up with a sufficiently formed project to process at the same time as we process the environmental review for the general plan. if that project would move forward. It would definitely be a much more expedient and cost saving for the city to process it that way, and also have the communication with the community process set up through the general plan update. So, where we are with Copenhagen Drive reopening, you gave us direction to reopen Copenhagen Drive fully by April 18th. We have been working with the businesses that had encroachment permits issued to them during COVID-19. They have all been notified of the fact that Copenhagen Drive will be reopening and that their permits will be lifted, and they would need to go back to operations as they were pre-COVID. So we have asked all the businesses to remove all of their business belongings by April 8th. So you will see that things will start to change on those block and a half of Copenhagen Drive. The city staff will then work between April 8th and April 11th to perform cleaning of the area and also doing some restriping. And following that work, we will be ready to completely fully reopen as of April 18, where we'll go to operations completely the way that they were before COVID-19 temporary closure. A few things coming up, just to keep everybody abreast that we have a few events on our calendar. There's a few things going on with the Recreation Division. We'll have the Easter coming up on April 16th. There's a cleanup day on April 23rd, and Mother-Son Luau will be held on May 6th. We also have a few events, one of which is a city-sponsored event, which is the logo competition event, which is scheduled currently for this upcoming weekend of April 2nd and 3rd. It will be followed by April 30th Stetson Roadster Classic Car Show. We have two events currently in processing for May 7th, which is Stolen Half Marathon and Rancheros Vistadores. On June 18th, we have a small event proposed at the park, Solon Park, of Juneteenth events. And then on June 24th, we have Pierce Aero Society Car Show penciled in. And June 25th would be potentially a new event, which will be considered by the TAC, which is SYV Pride event. Just updates of where we are with committees and commissions and items that we'll be considering in the near future. We have Monday, April 4th coming up for the Planning Commission. We are expecting that the old lumberyard project with Ed St. George for the mixed-use hotel slash housing will be presented to the Planning Commission for conceptual review at this meeting. We are also continuing discussions with the applicant regarding a development agreement. We are also going to bring forward some preliminary discussion about food truck regulations. You heard from us at the last council meeting discussing the walk-up windows, and so with that and some of the other regulations for peddlers and whatnot, there's just some questions and clarifications as to how food trucks will be treated. So we'll be asking Planning Commission to just give us some preliminary comments before we actually attorneys work on any potential revisions to those ordinances, which would then come through the Planning Commission and eventually City Council. The Tourism Advisory Committee will be meeting on April 7th at 3:30 p.m. Right now on their agenda we have the Solvang Pride event application review, and there would also be a continued discussion of decisions for the tourism budget and remainder of the funds that are not yet allocated or earmarked for a specific purpose through July 31, 2022. The Design Review Committee will be meeting on April 19th, and actually on April 19th they will be hearing the Mission Alisol Boutique Hotels project preliminary review and the Sensum Clean project approval. On the slide, but the special session at 3:30 p.m. it will actually be taking place in May, where they would be starting to work actively on and holding a workshop type of session for an hour and a half, where they will look at the audit for the community design element, and will begin that process of really providing their input into that update. A few more notable action items on the advance calendar coming up in the next several months would be the Once again, on the 11th of April, we'll come back with the last introduction of the ordinance, adopting the map and the districts and the sequencing for the election, which is the item you just heard. We'll also be coming to you with some temporary, shorter term recommendations for parking solutions. We'll be bringing to you what we've been talking about is the conceptual review of the phase 3 of the water treatment plant update, which would be the discussion of recycled water and receiving further direction from you on that. You did already have an adopted goal for the next financial plan development to continue to work on recycled water, but we'll just provide you with additional information and some considerations on that. And then, of course, we'll be, between now and June, it will be a busy time for us, continue to develop the fiscal years 22-24 financial plan development. We will be bringing to you, there's a few organizations that have been requesting funds that we will be bringing all together, which is the Senior Center, Theater Fest, the 4th of July, Danish Days Foundation, that don't quite fit into the grants funding policy as you have adopted. Your grants funding policy is focusing on the services for seniors. So that will be coming toward for your consideration on April 11th. Then the grant funding under the policy will be coming to you on May 9th after the deadline to submit for those grant applications closes. And then, of course, we'll be developing the preliminary budget based on your adopted city council goals. We'll be proposing to you in May, at the second meeting in May, our proposed programs for both the capital improvement program and the operating program. We are continuing to explore revenue generating options such as sales tax. We'll be conducting a poll, bed tax increase, and a business improvement district based on your prior direction. Engaging with local organizations, including the Chamber of Commerce, to receive feedback and preferences on those. I did meet with the Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors last week, and they have voted to continue the discussion to their next Board of Directors meeting and continue to look at different options, especially specifically considering different ways you could structure the business improvement district, which would directly impact the business community. So that conversation is ongoing. Just to remind everybody, post the March 14 and your council direction, the utility rate study is moving forward. You did set the Prop 218 hearing for June 13. During this time of April and May, we will be conducting the public outreach, and we will be sending out the Prop 218 notice as we're required to do by law. And then our expectation is that at the second meeting in June, depending on the results that you receive on June 13th, we would hold an adoption of the rates hearing, and the rates would be potentially in effect starting with July 1, which is also the beginning of the next financial plan. Now, we had a short agenda, so I thought I could show you this video. It's about 2 minutes. It's from the state, but it really talks about water conservation. And just a reminder to everybody to continue to conserve water despite the fact that it's raining. And it's actually, this video speaks to that precisely. Is there a way to have the sound? Or maybe if sound doesn't work, we might have to delay. Or maybe if there's any questions in the
While they're queuing that up, you listed a series of events that are coming up, and I didn't write them down because I thought they'd be on the event calendar, and none of them are on the website, city website calendar.
And we have had a conversation about some potential short-term solutions, so we'll post a simple PDF of citywide calendar in the very near future, and then we'll work on a little more sophisticated options as we update the website.
Please. Thank you.
Okay, is there any other questions? Or if we can fix the sound, we might just, it's on? All right, beautiful. All right, stop, yeah.
In California, droughts don't come in cycles anymore. They are simply our new normal. Our climate is changing, and we can no longer rely on the Sierra snowpack alone to get us through
We need
extended
to be
periods
seen,
of
right?
drought.
Hold on.
A storm here or there will never be enough to fill up California's reservoirs after multiple dry years. As California's public water agencies are hard at work developing
It's not looking at the right input here. Let me just fix that really quick.
more local sources of water supply.
Oh, we'll start from the beginning. There you go.
In California, droughts don't come in cycles anymore. They are simply our new normal. Our climate is changing, and we can no longer rely on the Sierra snowpack alone to get us through extended periods of drought. A storm here or there will never be enough to fill up California's reservoirs after multiple dry years. As California's public water agencies are hard at work developing more local sources of water supplies that don't depend on Sierra snowpack, you can do your part by helping to conserve the water you use in your home or business. Californians are encouraged to voluntarily reduce their water use by 15% to protect water reserves and help maintain critical flows for fish and wildlife. You may be asking, can my own personal water conservation make a difference? The answer is a resounding yes. If Californians work together to conserve at least 15%, we could save as much as 850,000 acre-feet of water for future use. That is enough water to supply more than 1.7 million households for an entire year. Conservation is a key part in helping California adapt to our new climate reality. Think of conservation as a habit, and getting into the habit now will help to make conservation a way of life. Believe it or not, on average, Californians use as much as 60% of their water outdoors. So what can you do to conserve water? Install drip irrigation. Use a smart irrigation controller to water your outside plants. Turn your sprinklers off or down during the winter. Take advantage of your local water agency's rebates to landscape with drought-resistant trees and plants. Inside, you can take 5-minute showers. Turn off water when brushing your teeth or shaving. Only wash full loads of clothes and dishes. Drought isn't going anywhere, and saving our water is saving our future. If we want to ensure our homes, farms, businesses, hospitals, schools, and universities have the water they need to support our thriving economy, we all need to do our part to conserve. To learn more water-saving tips and tricks, please visit saveourwater.com.
That concludes my presentation.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. Are there any questions? Any other questions? All right, moving on to council comments and or requests. Is there anyone that wants to report on anything coming up?
Yeah, a couple things that have happened in the past, actually. Let me go back to this page over here, sorry. Okay, so went to attended the APCD meeting, the Air Pollution Control District. They received a federal award of $75,000 for monitoring devices for air quality. Turns out the worst air quality in the county is in Guadalupe and Goleta, believe it or not. So they're gonna be testing those and trying to set things up a little bit better. I attended a Project Opioid meeting over in Buellton and had several of the law enforcement agencies. It was headed actually by our current county sheriff, Bill Brown. And what they were saying in this presentation is that the opioid deaths are increasing at an increasing rate. It's rather a stunning number. We are not affected specifically here in Solvay. There was one death in this last year in the valley, but nothing in Solvay. On the other hand, both Santa Maria and Lompoc had a lot of them. They had an equal number each, but since Lompoc is smaller on a per capita basis, they're at a higher rate. They say the fentanyl is the major issue. It's easy to make. It's in many drugs, cocaine, fake pain pills. There was one particular case where somebody was sick and a friend presumably said, here, have this Zantac. It had been laced with fentanyl and the person that accepted it died. Narcan is the brand name, not naloxone, I believe, is available without prescription, in some cases free. All of the law enforcement have those in case they run across that. What they were recommending is that if you deal with younger kids, children, young adults that are going to parties and subjected to the possibility of getting into drugs and things, or you're managing them on a football team, whatever it might be, you should have a Narcan nose sprayer available to you in case something happens. I attended the legislative briefing, but we got a presentation on that. Go to the next page. That was it. Thank you.
That was it. All right, thank you. Any others wishing to make any comments at this time?
Yes, I just wanted to send my condolences to the friends and family of Vincent Becerra. I personally knew Vincent and Angie as they are my neighbors over at Village Lane, and it was fantastic to watch them grow into two young adults, and they were thriving, and it's heartbreaking to see these laws, and I would like to remind everybody to be extra careful in the road. There are a lot of distractions and a lot of things that are pulling us in different directions, and it's just not worth not being aware when we are driving. And again, very terrible loss, and lots of love to the Becerras, Julie, and Rick.
Thank you. Moving on with mine, last call for emergency rental relief is through the state right now. Housingiskey.com is the website where you can sign up and get renters relief for COVID. So that's still available through Thursday of this week. Moving on to the food bank, on March 15th, there were 205 households served and 786 individuals, 17 first time. And on March 21st, there were 200 households served, 838 individuals, 28 first time. Maria stole my thunder on the announcement for the SBCAG. I attended an SBCAG meeting, and that was one of the things that they had talked about was broadband. So just as a reminder, they were able to get the minimum collection goal for broadband needs assessment, and the speed campaign was met within a few days of the campaign launch, which was just last Wednesday. But they are still looking for more data. The data collection is still needed, and it's particularly important for the broadband survey, which is the actual needs assessment. And it's not a one-time, they're just looking for for the public to self-report their internet experience and speeds at home, work, or wherever they connect. And they'll continue to collect that data all the way up through May 31st. And again, the purpose of this campaign is to collect information to establish an initial baseline of high-speed, affordable internet needs for the county, which will complement data collection efforts underway for regional broadband strategic plan. May will be the Cyclemania. There is a website that you can go to if you are interested as a local nonprofit, business, or individual to register a bike event to be included in the Cyclemania 2022 calendar of events. You may apply at www.surveymmonkey.com/r/cyclemania, and it's May, MAYNIA for May, -2022-REG. And it was founded in 2009, and it's a unique collaboration that's made possible through the South Coast Measure A Bicycle and Pedestrian Funds, which is administered by SBCAG. This Tuesday, tomorrow at 5:30, there's going to be a Measure A Citizens Oversight Committee that will be an in-person at the Tribal Hall at the San Ynez Band of Shumash, located at 100 Via Juana. You can go to sbcag.org and check out the agenda that they have for tomorrow night's meeting. And I did want to make one comment. I forgot to do this during public comments, but I did receive, and I want to make sure everyone on the council received it. And I saw her earlier, but obviously she's not here now. From the Butchers, Rovi, and Matt, they were extending a gratitude to the city staff, planning committee members, and Chelsea O'Sullivan, who all worked diligently in finding a resolution that most of the Skip Mesa residents can live with. And they're just grateful for the effort that was put into the amendment. And then just lastly, on a personal note, last weekend, or the weekend prior, March 19, my dad celebrated his 98th birthday, and we had quite a bit of Urigs gathering for that weekend of celebrations. All weekend long, my dad likes to party. I didn't realize, so he tired me out. Anyway, congratulations, Dad. Moving on to item number 5 now, our consent agenda. Madam Clerk, would you please read the items on the consent agenda?
Approve order of agenda as presented. 4B, approve meeting minutes of March 7, 2022, City Council Special, City Council and Planning Commission Joint Special, and Planning Commission Regular. And the minutes of March 14, 2022, City Council Regular Meeting. Item 4C, adopt by title only and waive further reading of ordinance number 22-0354, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Solvang, California, amending Title 11 of Solvang Municipal Code to address accessory structures in side yard and rear yard setbacks in residential zones. 4D, adopt by title only and waive further reading of ordinance 22-0355, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Solvang, California, amending Titles 2, 8, 10, 11, and 12 of the Solvang Municipal Code to reflect Planning Division reorganization, clarify Design Review Committee and Planning Commission powers and duties, clarify appeal bodies, and remove outdated code provisions and typographical errors. Item 4E, adopt resolution number 22-1163, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Solvang designating the city manager or accounting supervisor as the City of Solvang's authorized agents, Cal OES Form 130, to receive FEMA funding for the Great Plates program.
Moving forward, just want to clarify one thing. Is this item 4, or item 5, because we moved item 6 up? It's still 4.
It's still 4, we just switched and heard item 5 ahead of item 4.
Okay. I just wanted to make that clarification. Is that?
As long as it's clear that the action is adopting the consent
The
calendar.
consent calendar, we don't worry about that item. All right. Is there any council members wishing to discuss or needing to pull any items?
I'd like to make some corrections on the minutes, please.
Okay.
If you look on page 7, towards the bottom of the page, it says Gay Infante referenced an orange plan and noted the boundary is not drawn on Balboa. There is no such street in Solvang. She said Viborg. It's twice in that paragraph. It says Balboa, it should say Viborg. Page 13, get down there real quick. Oops, are we not there yet? It talked about, in the middle, Mayor Pro Tem Infante stated he likes the idea of the logo event, but felt it cannot be effective with only 2 weeks of planning. Wait a minute. There was something else in there. My apologies. Hold on. It was down below the items pulled for, towards the bottom. It says, Mayor Pro Tem Infante pointed out that only 10 adults have been signed up to participate. That's not what I said. I said there were 10 adults identified, but nobody had been signed up at that point, which was one of my concerns with that Lego issue. And then if you go down to page 16, it mentions public discussions, and where'd it go? There it is. About the 3rd paragraph on the page, 4th paragraph, it says Randy, business owner. That was Rennie. Rennie Kazaroff.
Karaskov.
Karaskov. Thank you. It's not Randy. That was the corrections I wanted to make. Thank you.
All right. With those corrections, is there anyone else wishing to pull any items or discuss anything? If not, I'll entertain a motion to, with the corrections, accept the consent calendar as stated.
I'll move that we accept the agenda, the content,
That thing.
that thing.
To approve the consent agenda.
Approve the consent agenda with the corrections to the draft minutes.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante.
And yes.
Councilmember Rona.
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Mayor Uhrig.
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Then moving on to item number 6, another public hearing. Madam Clerk, would you please read the title of item 6?
Public hearing to consider approving the general plan annual report and to adopt a categorical exemption pursuant to section 15306 of the guidelines for the implementation of the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA. Review and approve the general plan annual report and adopt a categorical exemption pursuant to section 13506 of the guidelines for the implementation of the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA.
Thank you. This is an annual required report, and we have our plan consultant, Lori Tamora, on Zoom with us, who will present the report.
Good evening, this is Lori Tamora, planning contractor, and I'm bringing forward to you tonight the annual report of the general plan, and also giving you an update on the progress of units that have been approved over this last year. The report is required by state law. By April 1st, we need to file records with state HCD, Housing and Community Development, and also with the Housing Authority. Right now, the City of Santa Maria, as of 2021, we issued 1 single-family home permit, 3 accessory dwelling units, and 1 junior ADU, for a total of 5 new units within the City of Solvang. There were previously, in 2020, 2 projects that were approved that involved a substantial amount of units. Those were the ones on El Victado Road for 32 units with an affordable housing unit, and also on Mission Drive with 59 units were considered for the area formerly known as the old lumberyard. Those projects have not been issued building permits yet. So they're still in our inventory, but are recognized as completed housing units. The annual report, as written, provides a number of information in regards to how the general plan is proceeding, the update of the general plan. We also have in there the efforts that were done throughout this last year for the assignment of the RENA numbers for Solvang and the rest of the county. And also in the last table, we outline the action items that were provided from the last general plan update and housing element update. So this report summarizes the efforts over the last year. Most of the identified items are being completed through the update to the general plan, and we will see a new table being provided upon completion of that general plan update. That's the completion of my report. If there's any questions, I'm available, and this will be an acceptance of the report, and then we'll move on to filing it with the state. I'm available for any questions.
Are there any questions on the staff report at this time?
No.
I had one, and I just trying to remember now if I can find it. The units that you were talking about, Lori, are all going to be allocated to the fifth RENA cycle, correct? Not to the new one where we need the 191 units?
So the units that I outlined, the 5 new units, those are allocated to the old cycle, the fifth cycle. Any unit that has not received a building permit and occupancy permit can be allocated to the new cycle. And so the approved projects that we've had that are still valid and pending can be allocated to our new RENA numbers.
So the one on Alisal, the one on Alamo Pintado, and then we still have the other one on the west end of Mission, which I think was a 15 unit or 16 unit.
Correct. The cottages on Old Mission have not received their occupancy permits yet. The deadline, the break in the inventory is June 20th, 2022. So if they get their issuance of occupancy before that time, they will be allocated to the fifth cycle. If it's after that time, we can count them in the sixth cycle as part of our new allocated RENA numbers.
Okay, thank you. That's, I just wanted to clarify that. All right,
Correct.
any other questions? All right, it's a hearing, so now open it up to the public. Is there anyone out in the public wishing to speak in person? I do not have any speaker slips. No one out in the public. There's no one out there other than staff. So we'll bring it back to Zoom. No one on Zoom. So we'll close the public hearing and bring it back for final discussion and action.
And one last comment, I finally found what I was trying to find there. On page, 128, right above the listing of the elements of the general plan, City of Solvang is now in a contract with a planning consulting firm to update most of the elements of the general plan. But it appears you've listed every element of the general plan. So is most an inadequate term? Shouldn't it be all?
It is all.
And thank you for that point. We'll make that change.
Thank you.
All right, moving forward, do we have any final comments? Otherwise, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we received and filed the report.
Review and approve.
Review and approve the report.
And adopt a categorical.
I'll second that.
exemption. Second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante.
Yes.
Councilmember Rona.
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Mayor Uhrig.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Moving on
Thank
to,
you.
thank you,
Thanks,
Lori,
Lori.
appreciate
Thanks, Lori.
the effort. Moving on to item number 7, regular business. Madam Clerk, would you please read item 7?
LCTOP funding for the Lot 4 and 5 EV charging station project. Adopt resolution number 221164, resolution of the City Council of the City of Solvang designating the city manager as the City of Solvang's authorized agent to execute the certifications and assurances and agent forms for the Low Carbon Transit Operations Program, LCTOP.
Is there a staff report?
I have a very brief report, if we could have my slide up. This is really just a little bit of good news that we qualify for additional funding. The LCTOP program was established to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The City of Solvang's upcoming Lot 4 and 5 EV charging station project qualifies for these additional funds. A total of $150,497 in funds are available for the project. That is primarily derived from the county with some contributions from Solvang and also Lompoc, which amounts to this amount, and staff plans to apply these funds to purchase of what would be the first electric bus for the City of Solvang. So it's just an authorization for me to execute those agreements.
Are there any questions of the staff report?
It's my understanding that AB 266 extended the emission bus exemption. So we get exemptions on this for taxes as well as funding? Did I understand that law right?
266?
AB 266.
I'm not familiar of it by the Assembly Bill number. The AB 266 that I'm familiar with dealt with some type of medicinal cannabis, but it may be a different legislative period. Just want to make sure I'm getting the correct
Yeah, I
one.
was testing the cannabis.
Maybe it was 420.
I wrote this down during the legislative briefing from Cal Cities, and that's what I wrote down with AB 266, so maybe I got the number wrong.
Well, you may have it right, it may not have been adopted yet, is the
Because it's
legislative
an
brief.
upcoming legislative.
It might be upcoming, yeah.
Right.
I'll take a look into it real quickly though.
Thank you.
While you were munching on some gummies. All right. Yeah, I think it's a win-win for everyone just to be able to do this. It's been hoping we could be the first one to actually have the smaller version, because SBK gave, I think, about $750,000 to the MTD to be able to, or no, Clean Air Express, I think it was Clean Air Express,
Yeah.
to purchase the first long travel bus. So it would be great to have one for us.
Should we do the same thing they did and bring it when it's here?
I think
And
so.
have an opening, bring
Yeah.
so the cargo haul down and all of the executive.
Be awesome.
It was a great, it made the press, it did everything else. I think we should do that.
Great idea. He'll be the
We'll look
presenter.
forward to that, yes.
Just the bus. Just the bus.
All right. I guess we just take it out. Do I take it out for public comment already? For all of those public that are out there right now? Seeing none, bringing it back to Zoom. None for Zoom right now. Bring it back for final discussion and a motion. Any final comments? May I take a motion?
I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution 22-164.
I'll second it.
Second, all right. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante,
Yes.
Councilmember Arona,
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas,
Yes.
Mayor Urick.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Excellent. And now moving on to regular item number 8. Madam Clerk, would you please read the title into record?
Professional Services Agreement, Grant Writing Services for WWTP Upgrades. Authorize the city manager to enter into a professional services agreement with Carollo and Engineers, Inc. for grant writing services and approve budget amendment in the amount of $75,500 from the general fund.
Okay, I'll briefly introduce this item and hand it over to Jose for any further comments on it. This item is really in front of you because we are starting to proactively look for grant funding opportunities and any funding opportunities for various utilities projects. There's quite a bit of funding out there, but it does take the specialty and expertise in the grant writing in that specific industry in order to move these projects forward and know where the different pieces of legislation are and different funding pockets are at this time and what's available. So this particular grant and this particular RFP is really specific to the wastewater treatment plant upgrade. It's the beginning of a conversation to where the proposal that we have here in front of you would be working with Categorical engineers to develop a plan and a funding strategy for the wastewater treatment plant upgrades for phase 2 and 3. Phase 1 has been completed. So that will be the focus of this particular grant. I would just point out that the fact that it's being funded as proposed from the general plan or general fund balance is because as we are here today, the projections and the way that the budget was adopted for the current year for wastewater fund, enterprise fund, our expectation that we would be ending the year in the negative. Now, there may be potentially some savings and hopefully we'll land ourselves at a better position by the end of the year, but that's why the utility rate study is essential in order for us to actually be able to fund such kind of projects with wastewater monies instead of general fund. So that's why that's here in front of you today, and we'll continue to work on other programs for water infrastructure as well. So that will be forthcoming. Jose?
Zena gave you the whole background. So, just quick background, when Categorical presented the first technical memorandum on this project for the wastewater treatment plant upgrades, it was presented in several phases. First phase was the aeration project, which was recently completed in January of this year. The next two phases are to enhance the treatment process. They presented two options. One was MBR, which is membrane bioreactors versus secondary clarifier treatment processes. Based on staff recommendation and ease of operation and maintenance costs, staff is choosing the SBR process or wanting to pursue that process. Phase 3 would delve into the production and possible distribution of recycled water. So what we're looking at is going out for grants or low financing of the project. So staff did release the RFP in February of this year to select a firm to help us with grant writing for the project. And Categorical was selected out of 4 firms that submitted. We had M&S Engineers, Categorical Engineers, Olivera Environmental Consulting, and Ms. Holly Nolan Chavez. Staff reviewed the proposals thoroughly, conducted a matrix within 6 staff members, also held interviews with each firm to get a better understanding of which firm was most qualified. Based on that information, Categorical was selected as a firm to pursue helping us with this grant project. Categorical did submit their proposal in the amount of $75,500. That will help with seeking out grants and also a compilation of possible low financing for the project as well. As Zena mentioned, currently the wastewater treatment plant fund is at zero balance or minimal balance, and so the funds would be coming out of the general fund at this time. At this time, I'm open to any questions from the council.
Are there any questions of the staff report at this time? I think it's definitely needed to be able to try to obtain as many grants and or low interest loans to be able to help fund this project.
And since Categorical's been with us for this whole process, if I'm not mistaken, like you said, the engineering, they gave us the different choices of what was to do for phases 1, 2, and 3. I think they made perfect sense, and their credentials looked really good in the contract in here. So, I'm good. I say prove it. Oh, we have to go out for comment first?
Public comment first, or Mr. Clark, Councilmember Clark.
I have comment.
Go ahead with your comment.
No.
No. Well. All right, we'll take it out for public comment at this time. hopefully no one rushes the counter. We do have law enforcement here, Sergeant at Arms at this point, Lieutenant at Arms, I should say. Bring it back to Zoom. Anyone out of it wishing to speak on this item in Zoom? Seeing none, bring it back for final comments, council comments, and/or a motion. Is there anyone with a motion?
I'll move that we approve.
Second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Infante,
Yes.
Councilmember Rona,
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas,
Yes.
Mayor Yurick.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Excellent. Great job on that staff report. All right, we are at that time. Do we have one more? That's it, right?
That's it, I think.
So that should be it. I did want to make one final comment though, because I was totally remiss. We will be losing our police chief as of this coming Sunday. And he will be moving on to the airport to be part of our air support unit with the Sheriff's Department. And Jeff, it's been a pleasure being able to work with you as the Community Resource Deputy before, and now as the Mayor of Solvang. Appreciate all your time and effort in keeping us and our residents and business community safe.
He's gonna give us free helicopter rides, I heard.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
Saying is, yeah, right, that's where our air support unit is.
Aviation unit is.
Around from time to time.
He may be covering, we do have a new lieutenant coming in, and I think at our next council meeting, it will be the official meet and greet.
I'll bring him to next one.
All right, thank you. Anyway, thank you very much, Jeff, appreciate everything.
We'll miss you.
Yes, we will. All right, with that, meeting is adjourned at 8:17. Wow.
This way.